Now and Then by the Beatles dropped yesterday. Boy, I really enjoyed our impromptu listening party that we held at 10 o'clock when the single came out. 45 years in the making, the Beatles releasing the tune. First few bars, written and recorded by John Lennon in 1978, completed by the surviving members of the band last year. A song features, of course, all four members of the Beatles, and it's a closing chapter for one of the greatest rock bands in history. Now and Then was completed with the help of artificial intelligence. So with that in mind, I said, we got to get Mitch Joel onto the program because, Mitch Joel hosts a music podcast, Groove, the No Treble podcast. Of course, he's the founder of Thinkers One and does so much more in the tech space. I said, Mitch knows his music. He knows his tech. Mitch, welcome to the show.
Happy to be here. Love discussing both of my favorite things.
What a great convergence here. First things first, hot takes. It's not hot. It's a day later. 24-hour take. What do you think about Now and Then?
I would give it somewhere in the middle. I don't think I was captivated by it. It's funny, when I was thinking about this segment this morning, I thought I should go and re-listen to the song, which is usually a signal to me that it's not all that memorable, even though I played it multiple times yesterday. And I would also say historically that when bands have come back and taken a member who's passed or tracks that have existed and pulled them together in a cut and paste kind of way, I don't think it ever stands up to that energy of when they are either writing or recording as a unit. I've always had a little thing in my brain that goes, I can tell it's them, but it doesn't feel like them. And that would be my hot take.
So
you?
Well, I'll say this. And I think, we created some magic yesterday because before we knew the song was going to come out at 10. And I said, we're an AM radio station. Of all places to launch the new Beatles single, we should do it. And we sort of hyped it up. And I had people sending us text messages saying, hey, my parents are in their 1975, I forget the model. They're in their 1975 vehicle in their driveway, and they turned on CJD just to recreate their past. And when the song starts and John Lennon's voice comes in, I tell you, Mitch, chills. I did have chills.
Always.
Right?
Yeah.
So
that voice creates that. That's the intent of the voice.
So in and of itself there, it's a home run there. I can sort of, when I walked home from work yesterday, I didn't necessarily want to listen to it again. So I think that's where I get to, okay, it's good. But that moment was quite touching. Let's get to the technology side of things. Using this, how do you describe the use of AI in this situation?
It's not as complex as people might think. There was this demo tape that John Lennon had done on an actual cassette in the late 70s, recorded in the Dakota Building, famous, of course, New York City. And 3 songs were passed from Yoko Ono over to Paul McCartney and whoever was around at the Beatles in the mid-90s as a way to potentially use this for compilation. And what they discovered is this one song, which is now called Now and Then, they couldn't separate the loudness of the piano along with John Lennon's vocals. So they wanted to do it. They tried. The technology at the time was quite limiting. And what's happened since then is obviously things like AI and these large language models, yes, and yes. There's a small documentary you can go and look online that talks about this and how Peter Jackson developed some type of audio technology for that amazing documentary Get Back, which I would say if that gave you goosebumps listening to the song, watching that is constant state of goosebumps, watching them come up with these songs and seeing John Lennon play like that. It's incredible. And this technology is able to essentially isolate and strip out different instruments and different vocals. So is it AI? I'm sure there's an element of the technology there, but the technology really is just looking at frequency of instrument and able to isolate them with this technology that we couldn't do before. And that's what was used here. So suddenly you could just have this isolated John Lennon voice. And I think when Paul McCartney and Ringo Starr took a listen to this, they thought, maybe we can finally take a go of this one song that we couldn't do on the retrospective that came out in the mid-90s.
Now, we lost John in 1980. We lost George in 2001. Still 2 surviving members of the Beatles, and they worked on this. And I'm like, well, I'm all for it. I'm all for them doing this. But where this leads me? It leads me down the path of the artists that are gone, that are deceased. And now it's run by an estate. Do the estates now start going through all the archives, any single piece of tape, any single recording that they have, and start to use this type of technology, which is still them. It's not a recreation by popping into AI, write the lyrics, create the sounds. Do you have any worries about going down that path? How much a limit in that respect?
We have artists like Eddie Van Halen and Prince who have vaults of music that has never been released, never been heard. The ability to take that technology, put it in the hands of the producers and engineers who actually worked on the albums and songs that we know, love, and trust, and augment it with this technology to make it sound as clean and as fresh as possible, I think is an amazing thing. I would caveat this by saying that we've been doing this already for decades. We even had for the past couple of years, and still going in places, things like ABBA Hologram. They did a Ronnie James Dio one as well, where they're taking live concerts that they've recorded, putting them with these holograms on stage, and they're doing exceptionally well. The technology is there. And I think that's the big takeaway here. The technology is here to take music that we would typically listen to now that was recorded in the 70s or 60s and go, oh, it's not so crisp and clear, that can augment it. And by the way, bands today that are creating music completely digitally with no instrumentation or anything like that. They're performing live with versions of it that have even components of it that are engineered into it to make it sound more live, even in live scenarios. So the boundaries have already been crossed. And I think artificial intelligence only magnifies it. But let's be honest, this has been decades of doing exactly that, Elias.
It's interesting because you got artists like Grimes now, who has just said, he's told everyone, take my voice, do whatever you want with it. And other artists are like, no, this is me. It's only me. Maybe a topic for another day. Mitch, great talking to you. Thank you so much. The music podcast, by the way, Groove, the No Treble podcast. Everyone should tune it in. Thanks, Mitch.
Take care, Elias. Thanks for having me.